How do I learn to accept love? Hi everyone, I'm 18F and I recently started seeing this guy. This is the first person that I've dated and I'm starting to notice a few off things regarding how I perceive the relationship. I get uncomfortable when he flirts with me, and at one point I thought he was trying to manipulate me by love bombing me, but when I looked up actual love bombing, he's the farthest from it. Growing up, I didn't have a father and my mother wasn't very explicit with her love for me, though I knew it was there. I was treated pretty badly throughout my school years and bullied in high school. I find myself having a pretty low sense of self-worth and I feel unlovable sometimes. I think the guy that I'm seeing is a really good person and I don't want to screw things up. I don't know how to accept his compliments. I say thank you, but on the inside I feel like he's lying to me or he pities me. But I know rationally that isn't true. It's just that when he says I'm pretty or he offers to take me home, I feel extremely guilty and I feel like I need to pay him back in some way. I know people do nice things and I should just let them, but I feel so guilty because I feel like I don't deserve it. These patterns kind of spill over into my platonic relationships as well. I find myself wanting to love others, but never wanting to be loved. I love spoiling my friends with small gifts or favors, spending time with them, or just being there every time they need me. I feel like I can't depend on people how people depend on me. People say that I'm not a bad person, but I can't help feeling like I am a bad person on the inside, and I just masquerade as a good friend. And eventually someone is going to rip off this mask that I have and discover the truth. Objectively, I know that there are a bunch of discrepancies between reality and how I feel, and I feel silly for putting all of my thoughts out there. If anyone has advice for this, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. So, some people are saying, is this me as a girl? I know this is shocking, but sometimes your genitalia does not correlate with your experience, and that men and women can have similar experiences. I know it's shocking. So I just want to first give a shout out to this person because I want y'all to think a little bit about how hard it is to post something like this, right? To feel silly, objective, to recognize that you're putting something out there that does not internally make sense. It actually makes perfect sense. But it takes so much to be able to post this, right? Y'all see that? And there's so much here. I'm starting to notice a few off things about how I perceive in the relationship. This is what I mean about the quality of posts. So the person is very aware of what they're experiencing, recognizes some discrepancies, and is able to state it anyway, despite the fact that it kind of feels silly. Because if you have low self-esteem and there's some kind of logical inconsistency, it's really hard for you to ask for help, right? You're like, this is just my stupid head that doesn't make any sense. I don't even know how someone can help someone that's head is as stupid as my thoughts are. But the fact that they're able to do this is actually a huge step in the right direction. They're able to notice some of their thoughts and feelings, which are not perfectly aligned, and they're able to set aside their self-judgment and take a step forward in the right direction. Right? So this is fantastic. I mean, this situation, it sounds tough, but we'll get there too. But I'm really proud of people for the quality of the post. The other thing to remember is that the community deserves a shout out too, because we would not get posts like this unless the responses were solid, right? So if there's a bunch of hatred kind of responses oh, you're a girl, what are you complaining about? Men have it so much harder. Or the flip side of, if there was really invalidating stuff, then people wouldn't post things like this, right? So it's been a lot of hard work, and by hard work I mean I think each and every one of you has been a part of this. I don't think sometimes people realize how you affect the community, right? It's little things like reading this and not responding in a toxic way or responding in a positive way that make posts like this possible. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Go look at other places on the internet, right? Other support communities /r/sad and Forever Alone and other places where there's just a lot of toxicity. Or there's just kind of this echo chamber, empty support, right? Which is oh, it's never your fault. There's some subreddits like that where it's it's never your fault. You're awesome. You keep doing you. What I'm really proud of our community for is that we're self-reflective. We will point out things, but we'll do it with kind of compassion, which is awesome. Okay, so let's get to this. So the first thing is, as we've talked a little bit about today, let's do a quick reminder. So our ahamkar is our sense of identity. Samskar is an experience that we've had that shapes our personality, right? So what happens is we have a bunch of experiences that shape our reactions to things. And based on those experiences, we develop a personality or sense of identity, okay? So if you're in a relationship and you feel like you don't deserve love, and this is like actually a really good example of this, I find myself wanting to love others, but never wanting to be loved, right? I'm the person who spoils others and spends time with them, but like, I can't accept their affection. Like, it's a one-way street because they are good people and they deserve love, but I am not. And therefore I don't. And like compliments make me feel like uncomfortable because I don't really deserve compliments or affection or to be cared for. So where does this kind of sense of self, because this is an identity issue, right? This person does not feel like they deserve love. Like their idea of what they deserve is not this. So there are a couple of important things here. The first is, how does this form, right? So we can kind of see this. I was treated pretty badly throughout my school years and bullied in high school. So I find myself having a pretty low self-worth and I feel unlovable sometimes. So let's just like think about, these are just two sentences, which are just like, I was bullied, so check mark, right, in terms of your history. But what does that actually do to a person? Let's try to understand, what does bullying do to a person? So what do you deserve, right? How do you determine what you deserve? So let's like think a little bit about, you know, like if you're a slave, like if you're a slave, let's say like 1,000 years ago, what did you deserve? Well, like you deserve like less than other people, right? A lot of slaves didn't even feel like they deserved freedom. I mean, I haven't talked to a bunch of slaves, so I don't really know, but I'm making that assumption. But I've definitely seen, for example, like in India, there's still somewhat of like, I mean, there isn't like a strict caste system, but there's like upper class people and lower class people. There are bunches of servants. And you know, like there's like this clear idea of like what each group of people deserves. So there's like a first class cabin in a train, and there's a third class cabin in the train. In the first class cabin, people get to sit down, and the third class people get to stand. So I've seen in my own personal life, like how people are taught what to expect from the world and what they deserve. And so when you're bullied, right, when people like make fun of you, like on a fundamental level, since your mind isn't really that developed, you just get some like basic programming that's really like foundational. So there's not a whole lot of nuance. There's not a whole lot of like understanding or digestion or reflection. There's just, this is how it is. So when you're a 7-year-old and like everyone makes fun of you, what do you learn about yourself? You learn that, oh, I'm the person that people gets made fun of. And who gets the praise and adoration? The bully does, right? Who gets respected and compliments? And who gets treats? The bully does. And what do you get? You get the crap. You get the short end of the stick. You get to be the butt of the jokes. And all the good stuff goes to the bully, and all the bad stuff goes to you. And if this happens to you at a very young age, and it's quite profound and doesn't have the right counterbalancing influences, there's a lot here where like maybe your home life also is important, right? So if like your parents don't support you in the right way or don't give you that sense of identity of like unconditional love to kind of counter that. I'm not saying it's their fault, but like, you know, generally speaking, not everyone with being bullied ends up like this. Did we see something about? Yeah, okay. We didn't see much about this person's, what the relationships of their parents are like, but that's where you see a lot of good modeling. So if you sort of learn this about yourself, then it kind of becomes true, right? So it becomes a part of your personality. It becomes a part of your identity, that I'm the butt of jokes and I'm not the person who gets complimented. And believe me, kids are really good at this. Kids are really good at dividing people into groups. There's the popular kids and the not popular kids. There's a reason why high school is brutal. It's because instinctively, we're very hierarchical as children. So there's like the popular kids and the not popular kids. And you get placed in a particular category, which you understand and they understand. So once everyone understands the social hierarchy, there's some degree of harmony there because everyone has agreed on what steps people take. And this is why people don't like it when people get uppity in a social hierarchy, right? Like human beings respond very poorly to people getting uppity. We even have a word for it. They're like uppity, like you don't know your place, right? Sure, it's toxic, but it's natural. So what do you do about this, right? So the first thing is to understand that these experiences are carried forward from the past. They don't necessarily reflect on the present. So what our mind does is carries forward energy from our samskars from the past to the present. So for example, like the fact that you don't feel, there was so much resentment, maybe not resentment, there's so much like low self-worth, which you built up during your teenage years, and you haven't processed that, you haven't therapized it, you haven't, spiritually removed it. So you carry all those emotions with you, right? It's like emotional baggage. We understand this in terms of romantic relationships. When you have a bad romantic relationship, you carry the emotional baggage forward. So when you have a life of being bullied, you're carrying that emotional baggage to the present. The key thing here is that you need to recognize that that is not from this. Even though you're feeling it in the present, it is not created from this relationship. Your boyfriend is not love bombing you. Your boyfriend is genuinely like appreciating who you are. But the reason it feels like a love bomb, the reason that it feels fake, is because you have this idea from the past that you don't deserve this stuff, right? So if you don't deserve compliments and someone is complimenting you, the only logical conclusion you can come to is there's some kind of manipulation going on, right? It's like really simple. Completely logical. Like, I know the person feels silly, like it doesn't make sense, but it actually makes perfect sense. It's like, if I'm a POS and someone is treating me well, what am I missing? Where's the other shoe? What do they want from me? Like, what's going on here? Because I definitely don't deserve this treatment. It's actually perfectly logical. Okay? But that's emotional baggage carried from the past. So this is where in the moment, when you sort of feel that way, you need to ask yourself, is this a feeling that's being created by this interaction? Or is this an old feeling that is being stirred up? And the more that you're able to recognize, oh, this is a feeling that I've had from the past that's just like reawakening, just notice it, kind of like think through it a little bit, let it go, and then like, be where you are with your boyfriend. And the more that you do that, the more the baggage will kind of like decrease, and the more you'll be able to appreciate the compliments. Okay, that's number one. So number two, and I saw someone kind of post about this or mention this. The other thing is sometimes the way that people react to this is by mastery of the trauma. So this is a common thing that sometimes, this is why the abused become abusers. So there's this psychological thing where like, if I'm on the receiving end of a particular interaction, if I'm the victim and there's a bully, I can become powerful in that scenario by switching roles. So the way that I'm going to like fix this emotional victimization is by becoming the perpetrator, because there's like one victim in the scenario and one person with power. So there's the powerful and the powerless. And in the past, I have been the powerless, and F that, I'm never being powerless again. So how can I become powerful? Oh, I can start bullying people. So this is what you see. You see that like, a lot of bullies like have bad home situations, right? I mean, sometimes they're just assholes and they have good home situations and don't get appropriately parented, which is, I guess, is a bad home situation as well. But so sometimes bullies are because they, parents don't set limits on them. They're like brats and they don't like experience consequences. But then there's the flip side of it too, which is like the reason they're abusive to other kids is because they get abused at home. So like, their parents make fun of them or nasty to them. So they just like learn that behavior and then they mimic it elsewhere. So we can see like mastery of the trauma by like role reversal, like that can happen too. It's not happening in this situation, but that can result, that can happen too. And so then also like, what can you kind of like do about this in a very practical sense? There are a couple of other things to consider. The first is that if you're an altruistic person who does not like to be helped by other people, there's somewhat of a little bit of a trick that you can use for your mind. I don't think it fixes the core problem, but it can help. You can serve as a Band-Aid, which is recognize that sometimes the nicest thing that you can do for someone else is to let them do something nice for you, right? So like you like the way that it feels to do something good for someone, right? You like to be like a kind person, and recognize that by accepting their compliments is like your opportunity. So just like think about your boyfriend for a second. So your boyfriend thinks you're pretty and says, hey, you look really great today. And if you're like, no, I don't, screw you. Why are you saying that? Right? That's your instinctive reaction. You're like, how does your boyfriend feel? It feels terrible. On the flip side, you could say, if you say like, thank you so much, like I was having a rough day today, and like hearing that, I'm having trouble believing it, but I'm so like happy that you feel that way. Like, even if you say that, like, how's your boyfriend going to feel? You're going to make him turn him into Chad mode. He's going to be like, damn, my girlfriend was having a bad day and she like can't really accept the compliment, but like still I'm doing something good for her. I feel great about myself because I am making someone else's life better. Right? So when you let other people do things for you, it's kind of it's like a really nice thing to do for them. Right? And that's like how you form bonds with people. So some time ago, I used to like always turn down gifts. Like people would want to give me gifts. Like I'd have like a mentee, like I'd write like a letter of recommendation or something, right? So advise some kid. And they'd be like, I want to send you like a card to say thank you. I'd be like, you don't need to do that. It's not necessary. But then I realized like I'm actually doing them a disservice, right? It's like, let them express gratitude. Like let them practice gratitude. Like let them express gratitude, and then I will accept their gratitude. And then like, I will just tell them that I appreciate their gratitude. And like, it's great on all sides. So this is so confusing because when I started being a therapist, I was kind of like, it was really tricky, right? Because people would say, thank you so much, Dr. K. And I'm like, I didn't really do much. So it made me uncomfortable. So I wouldn't accept their thanks. I'd like reject it because it made me feel weird. They're like, oh my God, like you've transformed my life. It's like, did I? What are you talking about, bro? We've just chatted for a while. I'm glad you're doing better, but it's mostly you. Right? And then I was like, that's actually kind of doing them a disservice. And so then I'll say like, you're like, I'm so glad that your life is doing better. I think at the end of the day, we meet for 1 hour a week and you're like living your life for 100 hours a week. So I think it's more you than me, but I'm happy to accept whatever gratitude you have. So right on, bro. And like, keep on trucking. And you're very welcome for whatever you're great. Like, you're welcome. But it was mostly you. Right? So you just accept the gratitude, like accept what they, and then like, because how is that person going to feel if they come in and they say, thank you so much. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. It's like their gratitude just, it explodes in the hangar. It doesn't like get out there. And so you just accept it. So when someone wants to do something nice for you, recognize that for them, one of the nicest things you can do is as genuinely as possible, try to accept what they want to do for you. And as you start to engage in these kinds of things, you're going to have different samskars, right? And you'll start to recognize, like, if this happens enough, like, oh, maybe I am bringing something to the table. Not everything, not as much as this person thinks. I think I'm bringing a little bit less, but I'm bringing something to the table, and I can be happy for that, right? There's some truth to this. So if you have trouble accepting love, you can start by sort of understanding, where does this idea that I don't deserve to be loved come from? You can also start altering your behavior a little bit. Recognize that even though it makes you uncomfortable, it can actually be really, really nice to accept someone else's gratitude. That you're actually like, that's a nice thing to do for them. Kind of a little bit of a Band-Aid. And the last thing is that, I don't know how else to say this, but you seem like a fantastic person. Right? So like, I think you're absolutely deserving of love. Like, I don't get where, like, just like, look at this. Look at how awesome this person is to, like, imagine if this person was in your life. So I find myself wanting to love others. I love spoiling my friends with small gifts and favors, spending time with them. Like, it sounds fantastic. Right? Like, they're self-reflective. They're not automatic. They're not reactive. So, like, I'm not surprised that people, are happy to, like, this dude is happy to date this girl because she seems like a fantastic person. She may have difficulty recognizing that, but I think we can all agree, right, that this is like a good person to date. And it's okay that doesn't sink in yet, right? Because you've got all this. So this is going to like not make sense. And so this is the last thing that I'll kind of leave y'all with. Objectively, I know there are a bunch of discrepancies between reality and how I feel. And yeah, that's because you were told in the first half of your life that you're unlovable, and now you're being told that you are lovable. And so that's going to feel like a discrepancy because it is one. Because like, it sounds like you were surrounded by assholes earlier, and now you're in what sounds like a healthy relationship. So like it's going to feel contradictory and silly to you. And this is the real problem. This is the kind of the bullet you have to dodge sometimes. There's a trap here, which is that if you are in a healthy relationship and you like turn to the internet They're going to tell you, oh my God, he's love bombing you. Don't trust them, right? Depending on who you go to, what echo chamber you choose to participate in, they will actually support whatever your paranoia is. And so then I think this person did the right thing, which is they looked up love bombing and they realized that like that's not what love bombing is. But this is the other problem with the internet, is that we like to label things really, really quickly. And like, here's just a quick aside. So gaslighting is a good example of this. So gaslighting is something that is, generally speaking, a systemic and malicious process that's aimed to disarm someone's like ability of judgment, right? It's like when you convince someone that they're crazy. But nowadays I hear gaslighting used anytime someone has a different opinion from yours. So human beings have different experiences of shared events. Like if I have an argument with my wife about something, I'm going to think one way about it. I'm going to recall one thing and they're going to recall something else. And now I've seen something really tricky, which is that when someone says, you did this to me, and I say, no, I didn't, and they respond with, you're gaslighting me, there's a gaslighter here, you can't argue against that, right? Like it's become something of a weird trump card that like once you play the gaslighting card, it's like, I can't say anything because I'm just gaslighting you further. Like I'm not allowed to have an opinion if you accuse me of gaslighting, because anything I say is just proof of the gaslighting, right? It's like kind of weird what's happening. It's just, no, you don't get to have a different experience or different perspective from me. So be super careful about labels on the internet, because in my experience, interactions tend to be like nuanced and multi-perspective. But what we're starting to do on the internet is get like terminology. Like we had a really good post the other day about someone was like, I had a bad sexual experience. I'm not interested in having sex again. Am I asexual? And I see this a lot nowadays where we're starting to label ourselves with things. We join that identity and then we don't really acknowledge that sexuality is like an evolving process, right? So what happens when we start to label ourselves is like, then we like, I'm asexual because I had a bad sexual experience. I go to an asexual community where everyone else is asexual. They encourage me. They say, hey, you can have a lovely, wonderful experience being asexual. Like it's okay. It's a normal variant of humanity. And I'm fine with that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being asexual. The problem is that sometimes we inappropriately label ourselves. So I've had patients, for example, who have vaginismus, who describe themselves as asexual. So vaginismus is a spasm of the vaginal muscles, which makes it very painful or even impossible for you to have penetrative intercourse. And so they didn't realize they had vaginismus. They just thought they were asexual, which is like fine, right? Like there's nothing wrong with being asexual, but sometimes just because you have difficulty having sex or don't enjoy sex doesn't necessarily mean you're asexual. There's a differential diagnosis for that. But the second we label something, and the second we become a part of that identity, then we could be losing something, right? Like, because that identity may not apply. And I hope to God this is not being interpreted as like Dr. K is against asexual people. I have nothing against asexual people. All I'm saying is don't label yourself too early. Once you've done a very thorough investigation, by all means, label yourself as asexual and live a happy and fulfilling life without sex, which is what most married people have to learn how to do in their 40s and 50s, right? So like we can manage that. So it's okay. Just don't label yourself prematurely and be careful about some of these labels, because don't label your partner as gaslighting when all they're doing is disagreeing, right? Like human beings are allowed to have, because that's the kind of thing that is actually going to negatively hurt your relationships. If you have a relationship with someone and they disagree with you and you start accusing them of gaslighting, like you can't have a conversation there. There can't be a way to resolve that conflict once you play that card. So be super careful about all these like terms that are getting tossed around, which absolutely can describe behavior and sometimes be appropriate. Like another good example is like monkey branching, right? Where people are like, this person's monkey branching. They're waiting till they have their next person in order to, before they break up with this person. And it's like, yeah, some people are like that. But the truth is that sometimes relationships are like complex and they're not intentionally monkey branching. Maybe the reason that they're like breaking up with you and dating this person in rapidity is for all kinds of reasons. One is that they can't tolerate being alone. So like they're just a serial dater. That has nothing to do with monkey branching. That just has to do with their inability to be by themselves. It's a very real possibility. Another option is maybe the relationship was dead on the inside and they didn't realize that until they met someone else that started to catch feelings for. And that's when they sort of started to realize, and I've seen this too, where it's like, I didn't realize like how bad this relationship was until I met someone else, like how empty the relationship has become. It doesn't mean they're monkey branchers. There's all kinds of reasons that can explain any given interaction for human beings. So just be a little bit careful about judging things prematurely. And I realize I've come way far astray from the post. But anyway, so kind of going back to this, so like for this person, just be careful about labeling things, right? Recognize, I guess the key takeaway here is that relationships and human beings are complex processes. A human being in and of themselves is an incredibly complex process. Put two of them together, throw in interactions, and you're getting an increased order of magnitude on the complexity of what's going on. So take it slow. It's okay for things to be confusing and conflicting. Ain't no problem with that. As you'll discover, things will resolve themselves over time. And don't label things too quickly, or don't stick to those labels. Be flexible around, what your interpretation of the relationship is. Yeah, so someone's saying had to deal with good vibes only and no drama guys. It's so annoying. Yeah, so this is the other thing, right? So sometimes like people will be like, yeah, I'm drama free. I don't do drama. And in adopting that stance, they create drama, right? Because like, the thing is, anytime you're going to have two humans in an interaction, there's going to be some kind of conflict. And like the way to be, you can't be drama free. You can be like drama resistant. So you can have like good methods of conflict resolution and like managing drama, or you can pretend to be drama free and just peace out anytime like the water gets a little bit rough. And then what ends up happening is you don't build like conflict resolution skills, and you enter into your next relationship looking for like drama free stuff. And then like you have dudes out there who are looking for like drama-free stuff. And like the reason they're looking for it so hard is because there's so much drama everywhere, is because they're creating it. Right? Like, yeah, I'm not looking for drama. Okay, so like manage it, bro. Right? And it's not just men, like this happens to women too. And non-binary people. I'm judging everyone equally here. But like drama-free only works if you're on an island. And even then today we've seen posts where there's drama in your head with yourself. Right? So like if you want to be drama-free, like don't look to other people. I'm not saying ignore other people, because some people, like said person, will attract drama. But recognize that you have a hand in the drama and they have a hand in the drama. And if you want to live a drama-free life, don't worry about finding people that are drama-free. Worry about conflict resolution, right? And then the way that you filter people is based on their ability to participate in conflict resolution. So there's some people out there that can't participate in conflict resolution, i.e. these people who say they're drama-free. Because when you have a conflict with them and you say, hey, I have this issue with you, can we talk about it? And they're like, sorry, I'm drama-free. This sounds like drama to me. I'm out. Right? That's who you want to avoid. Like, so like be careful about drama-free. Like if you want to be drama-free, focus on conflict resolution. Select for people who can participate in conflict resolution. And then you will have a relatively drama-free life. The key to a drama-free life is not the people you select, it's your capacity for conflict resolution.